And that's really important, especially now, because we are living in times right now where it's interesting. The times we're living in are pretty unprecedented. If you look at Western civilization and you look at a few hundred years of America, or 250 years almost, when you look at the trajectory, there is some radical new things that are happening on our watch. Am I the only one seeing it, or can I get a witness? Is anybody seeing that too? Okay. And a big issue right in the center of it all has to do with the matter of truth. The matter of what? And what is truth? And I want to talk to you today. We spoke on this last week, but we need to go deeper this week because it is a profound reality sitting in front of all of us right now on what are we doing, what is truth in the first place, and what are we doing with it, and how is it rolling out? Like right now, when it comes to matters of truth are being challenged right now. They're being challenged like never before. And we're living in times where speech is being banned. Speech is being banned. People make truthful statements, and that statement will be banned. And the reason it's banned, and social posts are being taken down, and some accounts are being shut down and removed, for some people presenting what they sincerely believe is truth, and maybe even have substance to back up that truth. But we'll have fact checkers. We'll have fact checkers with their own version of truth. And the fact checkers with their own version of truth somehow have the autonomy and the authority to say, we said that's not true, so we're taking you down because you're destroying the world with your view. And we say our view is the truth. And so only our view or perspective of truth will reign and prevail at the end of the day. Anybody else, anyone who dissents, we will strike, we will remove, we will remove you off the platforms that we've depended on so greatly. So it's pretty alarming how matters of truth are being challenged on our watch in a way that's never really happened, certainly in this country or really in Western civilization. Even the topic of truth has not been, I don't believe, put to the test the way it is right now. And that's why we got to talk about this and we got to go deep, because truth, your view of truth and how you understand truth will really determine your whole life. You will build your entire life and future and present based on what you believe to be true. And we looked last week at some people, stories of people who they really believed something was true, and their whole worldview was based on that version of truth, and they lived their life that way only to find out, oh snap, that wasn't actually true. So if we're going to build our whole life and our whole worldview is based on truth, I think we owe it to ourselves to really discern what really is true. What is truth in the first place, really? And today we're talking about the truth about truth. Because when you look at matters of truth, you can even get spin on what truth is about. And that by its very nature wouldn't be true. So we're gonna look at that today, and we're going to look at a scripture we're going to jump into in a minute. But I want to start out. There's a story of a multinational company, big company, growing like crazy, and they were on a search for an accountant. They really needed somebody to oversee their entire accounting department, and they had a lot of accounts to handle. And so they interviewed. They went through thousands of resumes, and they came out with these. They came up with these top 3 individuals. And the way they were going to interview them is they were going to have them come in with the interviewer, but all of the VPs of the company were also in on the interview, and they're all sitting and watching, and the interviewer would have the person come in. And so they narrowed it down to 3 people in 3 categories, and one was a CPA, and one was a statistics major, and the other was a marketing major. And so the CPA comes in and sits down, and the interviewer looks at him and says, so we're going to start out today, and we got one question for you to start out with. What is 2 plus 2? And the CPA thought, well, that's weird that they would throw such a softball at me right in the beginning like this. That's weird. And he said, well, the answer to that would be 4. And so the interviewer looked over at the VPs. They all smiled and nodded their head. And they said, okay, thank you so much for coming out today. We appreciate your time. And if we're interested, we'll call you. And they showed him to the door. The next one that comes in is a statistics major, and they sit down and they do the same thing. They sit down, and so our first question for you this morning is, what is 2 plus 2? Now, being a statistics major, he looked around and thought, okay, well, the answer to that would be somewhere between 3 and 5. And so they looked at the VPs, and they smiled. They thought that was pretty intriguing, and they nodded. And sure enough, they said, thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. And if we are interested, we'll give you a call. And they exited him out the door. The last person to come in was the marketing major. And they sat down and said, okay, we have a question to ask you. What is 2 plus 2? And the marketing major looked straight at the interviewer in the eye without even flinching an eye or batting and said, what would you like it to be? What would you like it to be? Now, that's not truth, but that's the way a lot of people operate. What would you like it to be? It can be anything you would like it to be. And that's kind of sad. It's a sad state of affairs, but there are many in life. What would you like it to be? What is there's the truth to the answer, and yet to some it could be whatever. By the way, that person was hired right on the spot. What would you, they worked for Enron. No, I'm kidding. What would you like it to be? And so that whole idea, that is so common today with matters of truth. What would you like it to be? And what we've developed right now is truth can be, honestly, today, in our time, again, it's a new thing, it's a brand new thing, whatever really you want it to be. And everyone can have their own version of truth. This is new in Western civilization. You can read the writings of, in the last 2,000 years of content and stuff we've aggregated. And this concept wasn't thrown around the way we're using it today, that your truth and my truth and their truth and opposite truths and everybody's fine and we just don't even ask the question. We just go down the road about truth and we're all basically saying, what would you like it to be? Because sometimes we're no different than that marketing major in that interview. What would you like it to be? It could be anything you would like it to be. And that by fact is not true. That may be choice, that may be preference, that may be style, that may be passion, that may be persuasion. All wonderful things and worthy of conversation, but it doesn't by nature make it true. So I want to unpack some of this stuff today, but these are new terms in Western civilization. Your truth, my truth, their truth, his truth, her truth. My new truth now, my old truth was this, but these are common words, and it's, that's why we said last week that 71% of Americans, according to a survey studied, were asked on the topic of absolute truth, like truth really being absolute, and 71% said they didn't think truth was absolute. That means only 30% were believing there's a definitive truth. And that's kind of a new change, a new trajectory change. I think what happens, guys, is when you repeat something often enough, people tend to believe it's true. Do you realize that? It's just kind of our nature. You tell people enough times. You start with a young kid who's got this heart and has some convictions and maybe is being parented, and you just start telling them stuff enough times, pretty soon they believe it's true. But even adults, you hear it enough times from enough places, and pretty soon you just go, well, I guess maybe it is true, and then finally it is true, and at least it's their truth, and we start going down this road about truth, and I'm just telling you, we talked about last week of what will hold you up, what you can stand on. That kind of truth you cannot stand on. To some, truth is fluid. Truth is fluid. It's just always drifting and always, it is. It's just the way they view truth. But by nature, that isn't truth. And so to some it's truth, and truth changes, or their truth changes based on what they feel and what they desire. I would say that's not truth. That's feelings and desires and passions change for all of us. But truth by its very nature and definition doesn't change. That kind of truth is subjective, but truth is really objective. It's not subjective. And think about this. If it's really going to be your truth, my truth, their truth, and everything, this is just a great way to grasp this because it is so prevalent in society and it's spreading like wildfire, this new view of truth. If truth is subjective, then think about this, and you put your own name in here, I am greater than truth. And I will conform truth into my image. And truth will be what I want it to be. Truth will be what I desire it to be. Truth will be what I hope it will be. And so therefore, truth has become, for the first time in ever, it's become subject to me. That is subjective. I hate to tell you, but that is not truth. There are true laws of the universe that are in place whether we like them or not, no matter what we think of. And guess what? They are not subject to us. Do you realize that? How many of you know that gravity is not subject to you and I? Try jumping off something high and you will find out really quickly, little kids learn this really quick, gravity is not subject to me. No matter how many Superman movies you watch or something, gravity is not subject to us. There are truths that are not subject to us. In fact, we are subject to them. And so it's really important, but to some, truth is subjective. It's subjective to themselves, their own view. It's constantly moving. That kind of truth won't hold you up. That kind of truth can never give you assurance. You can never have assurance. Why? Because last week we talked about walking out on the ice. You really don't know what you're standing on. You hope you're standing on something good, but you just don't know. You cannot have assurance when you're not certain of the very foundation that you're walking on. You can't have the confidence that really you deserve to have. We should all have profound assurance and confidence of the very things we're walking on. The aim of our life. Even though we have different views and maybe persuasions and passions in certain areas, that's great, but we should have assurance and confidence that we're walking on matters of truth and we're kind of unshakable. That's the way to live life, because that kind of truth is based on certainty. And it really breaks my heart. It really does, that so many people don't understand truth. And that's why we're doing this series on truth. Because so many people are building their life on something they've never really checked. I talked about last week as a kid in New York going out on the ice when it just freezes over and we're all trying to figure out, is it ready yet? And I don't know, let's go check it out. And I talked about how I walked out and I fell in up to here, and you realize, oops, it's not ready. I hoped it was ready. I really thought it was ready. In fact, to me, my truth was that the ice is ready. But that didn't hold me up, even though it was my truth. And so many in life, and we looked at examples of people go through life and aim at things, and it doesn't hold them up because there really wasn't truth to it. So my hope and prayer is that today in this room, we got some truth seekers in this room. We got some truth seekers in this room. Amen. And I'm hoping on our online community we got some truth seekers, because truth is something that needs to be sought. Truth is something that just doesn't happen and appear, and people are born getting it and people are born not getting it. Truth is more to that, and we're going to unpack that. In fact, we are so intrigued with matters of truth. We're so intrigued with them. TV shows on the court system are completely on the rise. There's a Judge Judy, a judge this, a Judge Billy, a Judge Sally, there's a judge everything now. There's a divorce court, there's a this court, there's Law and Order, there's every kind of show you can think of, and even movies often have a court scene in it. And what happens in the court scene? Most people start to lean forward. When there's a whole verdict going on or there's a trial, we all, wait, shh, be quiet. And we all lean forward. Why? Because they're trying to get to the bottom of something profound. And honestly, as the viewer, we don't really know the truth. I mean, what happens in these shows, and you've seen this before, is somebody gets up there and starts telling their version of the truth, and you go, I believe it. That totally makes sense. I believe it. And then you hear the other side, right? And you're like, oh, I think I believe that now, right? We thought this was true, but then maybe we think this is true. And this is profound. It happens in all of these shows and in all of these movies. And when you look at the situation, they have these sworn testimonies, and both sound pretty good. In fact, if you've ever seen a 60 Minutes where they interview somebody who's maybe on death row, or have you seen these, where they interview somebody who's already maybe in jail, they came to interview them, or their trial is still pending, or you hear that story alone and you think, I think they got the wrong guy or the wrong girl. I really do. I mean, that story sounded very compelling to me. I know, Christy loves these shows too. She's got that investigative mind. Maybe you guys do. But you watch and you go, that's pretty compelling. I think that person doesn't belong in jail. I think they made an epic mistake with this person. But you heard one side, didn't you? And then when you hear the other side, you go, oh, wait a second. I didn't know that. There's new revelation here. There's new insight. There's new perspective. It's getting clearer now. And when you look at a judge is not concerned with your version of truth. The judge isn't going to say, okay, everybody, this is Johnny, and he's going to go, Johnny, would you tell us your version of truth? How would you like this to have played out, what you experienced? And Johnny go, well, I think everyone was having a bad day. I know I was. The way I would like to see this thing happen is it really, it kind of should have gone this way. And the judge doesn't say, wonderful, Johnny, thank you for taking the time. Have a great day. And now we'll have Billy come up and give his version. No, they do the opposite. They say, Johnny, look at me. I want you to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Do you understand that? Do you swear? So help you God. Just the truth. I don't want to hear, well, I kind of feel it should have been, or it kind of, or I didn't really hear this, but I wished I heard this, or I thought I saw this, but I didn't really. No, the jury and me as a judge, they would say, we only want to hear what really happened. That is the entire aim. A court is designed to seek truth, not opinion. It's designed to seek truth. And to the court system, truth isn't this moving target, because truth has never been a moving target until recently. It's to distinguish between real events and stories, real events and myths. Myths are stories, you hope them to be true. I don't know, I heard, maybe it is, I hope it is, I'll cross my fingers, and I don't know, we'll find out later on. No, that's a myth, but a truth has substance and has foundation. And so a couple of quick notes this morning, and we're going to be jumping into a text here in John's Gospel, John chapter 18. But if you're a note taker, I encourage you to write some of these down, talk to these. And by the way, if this message speaks to you, I encourage you to share it with some friends and family. When it comes to matters of truth, the pendulum swings broadly. And I think God wants to simply bring some revelation on substance and what truth is really all about. And the first point this morning is that truth is not a feeling, truth is a fact. Truth is not a feeling, it is a fact. If it were a feeling, courts would say, how do you feel about that, Johnny? We're very sad it happened. Thank you, John. We're sad with you. We're very sad with you, and thank you. They're like, you might be sad. This isn't about what you're feeling right now, Johnny. We need to know what you saw, what you heard, and we're going to ask you questions to verify what it was. So truth, by definition, is not a feeling, although we throw it around that way today. I feel this way, so it's my truth, and you feel this way, so it's your truth. Again, this is brand new disposition, and you don't want to build your life on that. Truth is a fact. The second point is this, guys, is that truth is, in fact, a quest. Truth is a quest. A quest is an aim, a mission, a journey. We're not born knowing it all, but we're going to work on learning and being open-minded with an open heart to try to discover and understand what it is. Truth is a quest, and it takes intention to discover. Why I know, and many of you know, and many stories I've heard, the same thing. I lived outside of matters of truth because I didn't really want to explore. And we talked last week in more depth on why people would not explore truth. Why would they not explore it? Or why would they just blow off the topic? And we talked about the different dispositions. For some, ignorance is bliss. And others, if it's true, then I might have to modify my life, which I don't want to do. There's a lot of reasons why people don't want to explore matters of truth, and that's up to the individual. But I would suggest to really know truth, and I think we have the obligation, really all of us do, to try to understand what exactly is truth. And it is, in fact, a quest, and it takes intention. You have to search for it and be committed to a journey of discovery. And I don't claim I've arrived, and many of you, I don't think you claim you've arrived. I'm continuing to learn depths of truth and understanding of truth, but it is in fact a quest, and there's profound discovery to be made, which gives you definitive assurance and confidence in your life that your worldview and your aim and your mission and your goals will stand up. That when you finish this life, you can look at the rearview mirror of life with a smile on your face, going, I didn't build anything on a fallacy. I didn't build my life, my aim, my goals weren't based on any kind of myth. It was based on definition. It was based on truth, and I'm good with that. And you're going to be good with that. And this is really important. Again, it determines everything you do. Last week, we talked about some of the stories of the people who built their life on really what wasn't truth. They thought it was, but it wasn't. And we said last week, just to bring it up to speed if you missed, we said belief does not determine truth, but truth should determine belief. In other words, just because I believe it doesn't make it true. And a lot of people believe something really deeply in their heart. They're like, I just believe. Well, that's great that you believe it. But if I believe the earth is flat, it doesn't really make it flat. And I know I shouldn't bring that one up because there are some who, but you know what I mean though, right? Some believe it's flat. It doesn't make it flat. It doesn't make it flat because you believe it's flat. But if it's true, that should determine what we believe. So truth should determine belief, but belief does not determine truth. And that's the way it's thrown around today. I believe it, so therefore it's true. And I'm like, yeah, that's subjective. That makes you the master of the truth, and the truth subject to our opinion. And that's a pretty small truth. It is a small truth. And that kind of truth doesn't have a lot of substance, but it's very common today. So one thing I want to bring up, when you talk about history, and we try to discover things, every time we discover things, we start to put the pieces together and connect the dots, and we kind of verify matters of truth in deeper ways, even through archaeology and some of these many other things. But one thing that I want to bring up, and this is one of the oldest source material documents that we have in a pretty deep collection of it, but there was a scholar who lived in the 1st century at the time of the apostles, and his name was Josephus. And this guy was a secular Jewish historian. He was a historian. And Rome said, you're a pretty smart guy, we're going to fund you. So instead of the apostles trying to write on little scrolls, which they'd have to save up to get a little thing, they loaded this guy. They gave him everything he wanted. He had paper and pens for days, and he wrote what's equivalent to 12 volumes, almost like an encyclopedia set. That's what this guy got to write. He got contracted by Rome, and he was allowed to write. And he wrote a couple of key things. One of the things he wrote was Jewish antiquities, the whole story of Israel and to where it was at that point in the Roman Empire. And so this stuff was profound. Some of the early church fathers quoted this guy left and right, big chunks of his writing, because everybody knows that this guy was the ultimate historian of the day, and we don't have anything from anyone. In fact, when you think of the name Pontius Pilate, who some of you know the name, most people in the secular realm said there's no such thing as a Pontius Pilate. It's in the Bible, but it's not true. We don't have any proof, so therefore we don't believe it. And many people will say that statement, we don't have proof, so therefore it doesn't exist. But rule number one on that mindset is absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So in other words, we don't have proof of Pilate, so there was no Pilate, and therefore the Bible's wrong. This is how a lot would like to just wrap that up with a bow and put it on the side. But that's a fallacy, because the absence of the evidence is not really evidence of absence. No one's proved the absence. Does that make sense? And so in the 80s, they found this thing in Caesarea on the Jewish coast called a Pilate stone, 1980. This is 1950 years after Pilate. And sure enough, it said this entire building was built by Pilate in dedication, and they're like, oh, I guess the Bible was true. So it didn't go from being false to being true. It was true all along, but the truth was what? It was discovered, right? Because truth takes discovery, right? Truth takes, that's why it's a quest. It has to be discovered. So the Pilate stone determined, well, Pilate really was real. Well, guess what? This ancient writing by Josephus, the historian, documents all kinds of stuff, including Pilate, including all these other things, and people thought, wow, this guy Josephus was nailing it. In fact, when they went back in Israel to do excavations, I don't know if you've heard of the place called Masada. Has anybody heard of Masada in Israel? Amazing story with Masada. You can look it up of what happened there. But the point is, and I've been there a few times out to Masada, it's really profound, out by the Dead Sea where John the Baptist was, but an encampment on this top of this like peaked mountain. It was so hard to get to, but there was it was a Roman fortress for a while, but the Jews had a holdout there right before the destruction of the temple, and they held out for a while. And I don't want to give up the story. You can look into it. But Josephus is even writing 2,000 years ago about where Masada is located, the location of it. So based on his writings, they're reading going, where is this place? And they're looking at where he's saying it is. And they go out to the desert where nothing is, and they keep going, and they see a mountain, and they go, according to what he wrote 2,000 years ago, it's somewhere around here. And they go up to the top of this, and they go, sure enough, here is Masada. So they find these things based on Josephus. But Josephus wrote, he is a secular source of documented information, which is great. And he provides the longest secular reference to Jesus in any first century source, any secular source from the first century. And the evidence proves that Jesus in fact came, proves that he came, and that he lived among the people. He's documenting this from a historical fact, and that is the truth. And I would say that denying that Jesus came, for those who would, and some would, again, prove it, otherwise I don't believe it, that's making an argument out of, there's no substance to that, but denying that the historical Jesus came is either uninformed or it is dishonest. To deny that Jesus came with the evidence we have would either be uninformed, and some people are, or it'd be just dishonest. Now, it doesn't mean you have to believe in the teachings of Jesus. That's a whole other situation. But to believe that the historical Jesus didn't come and live on earth and wasn't documented by numerous people and in historical writing that's 2,000 years old outside of the Bible simply wouldn't be true. I believe we have a graphic of the text. Okay, this text up here, I want to read it. This is an ancient text from Josephus, and I want to tell you what it says. Not because I'm a scholar on this, but I want to read what it says. It's out of his book of Antiquities, chapter 18, and it says, about this time, and by the way, he wrote 12 volumes on everything about the Jews. He wrote about Masada. He wrote about all these other holdouts and everything that happened. And in this one section, he wrote about Jesus. Jesus' name comes up a couple of times, but this passage has the most about him as he's covering everything that happened, and he moves on. He did cover James, the Apostle James, because he was leading the church in Jerusalem and was killed, so he just simply mentions that as a historical fact. And he mentions John the Baptist because he was there was a revolution of people beginning to follow and turn. But this is the most comprehensive thing stated about Jesus from a secular source that is ancient, and it says this: about this time lived Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one ought to call him a man, for he was the achiever of extraordinary deeds and was a teacher of those who accept the truth gladly. He won over many Jews and many of the Greeks. He was the Messiah. When he was indicted by the principal men among us, and Pilate condemned him to be crucified, those who had come to love him originally did not cease to do so, for he appeared to them on the third day, restored to life, as the prophets of the deity had foretold these and countless other marvelous things about him. And the tribe of the Christians, so named after him, has not disappeared to this day. Now that's pretty amazing. This guy's writing this in about the year 100. He was living from about the year 70 to about the year 150. And so he had all overflow with the apostles and all the stuff that happened and the eyewitnesses and the people that saw. And he's writing this stuff to wrap up Jewish history that would live on in a detailed way. So he's documenting a historical fact that Jesus came and that he lived among us and he was crucified, and the historical evidence that he rose again on the third day. That is profound. But where I want to go today in the Word, if you have John chapter 8, I want to take what Josephus is saying and take it the next step deeper, where we move into the scene a little closer. What is he talking about? Jesus went before Pilate. What does that really look like? And Scripture documents this. Again, more ancient history that we have recorded. Even if people don't believe the message of the Bible, that's different for a moment. The factual reality that was documented by eyewitnesses and what actually happened at this point. It says this in John chapter 18. We'll put it up here, verses 37 and 38. This is Jesus was just arrested in the garden. He was brought before the high priest, the chief priests, and they started to beat him, but they didn't have the power to crucify him, so they bring him to Pilate, hoping Pilate will do it for him because he's the Roman governor, and Rome has authority in the land. So Jesus is standing before the governor. He is standing before a judge, so to speak, who has the power of life and death to make the decision of what he'd like to do. And so it says, beginning in verse 37, Jesus stood before Pilate. He said to him, "You are right in saying I am a king. In fact, for this reason I was born. And for this I came into the world, to testify of the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." What is truth? Pilate retorted. With this, he went out again, and the Jews gathered there and said, With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, I find no basis for a charge against him. So Jesus is in front of Pilate, the governor who has the authority, the judge, so to speak, that, he's on trial he's on death row, so to speak. You're either going to be capital punishment or we're going to let you go. I'm going to figure this thing out. And so he's in front of Jesus, and Jesus tells him, Jesus doesn't defend his way out of it. And the reason he doesn't is Jesus came with a mission, and his mission was the cross. And I know at face value, you're like, what does that mean? And obviously we get into the depth and the magnitude of the cross and what it means and all the power and provision of the cross, which is central to the gospel. But just on its face value, the governor is saying, I have the power to take your life or not take it. And Jesus doesn't try to argue his way out of it. But what he does say, I am a king. And in fact, on a cross, they put Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And they put it in 3 languages, Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew. So everyone coming into town, just like if you were drove at the 101 and the 405, they would put it right on the corner so everyone driving by would see, don't mess with Rome. This is what this criminal did. And Jesus committed no crime, and yet it said Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. He's asking Jesus, are you a king? Are you a king? And he said, yes, I am a king. And that's the reason I was born. Here's the reason that I came into the world, Mr. Pilate. The reason that I came, Jesus is saying, I came to testify of the truth. That is why I came. Now that's a profound statement because that's not what Buddha said. Buddha didn't say, I came for one reason to testify of the truth. Neither did Gandhi or Muhammad or Krishna or any of those. They didn't say, I came to testify of truth. That's the whole reason I'm here. But Jesus said the entire reason I came was to testify of the truth. And truth is his mission, but not everyone listens to the truth. And why doesn't everyone listen to the truth? We're going to see it right here in this passage. Why doesn't everyone listen to the truth? Here's something we have to realize about truth, guys. And this is our third point this morning. Truth has a side. Truth has a what? There's a side of truth. Truth has a side. And here's what's profound. You and I can either be on the side of truth or not on the side of truth. Truth isn't on our side. If truth were on our, then truth is subjective to us. We get on the side of truth. That's what Jesus is saying here. He's saying the whole reason I came was to testify of the truth. That's the whole reason. That's my mission, is to testify of the truth. And those who are on the side of truth, listen to me, on the side of truth. So truth is a side you can get on, or truth is a side you can say, I'm not getting on that side. And I know because I lived a lot of years going, yeah, with all due respect, I'm not getting on that side. I'm doing my own thing. And many do that for a lot of various reasons. Don't get on the side of truth. But truth, in fact, has a side. And what we think or feel, our dispositions, don't change the side of truth. Truth has, in fact, a side. And we could either be on it or not. And when you look at a courtroom, their entire purpose is to discern, out of everything I heard here, who is on the side of truth. Out of everything that was shared, you can be going on for weeks and weeks, trial, whatever it is, witnesses, experts, testimonies, that's great, evidence. At the end, who's on the side of truth here? Because one is and one isn't. Even if they might have sounded believable and dispositions might change, we have to get to the bottom. And a jury of peers or a judge applying the law has to discern what was truthful and get to the substance, because that is the entire point, is landing on something for sure, right? And so Pilate asked this golden question. And in fact, I think we're going to wrap up at this point if the worship team wants to come up. Here's Pilate asked this question. It's a great question. My prayer is that everybody asks the question that Pilate asks. And Jesus is saying, I came for the mission of the truth. That's the reason I came into the world. And everyone on the side of truth listens to me. And Pilate says the golden question, asks it, what is truth? Great question. I wish everyone asked that question. I really do. I wish everyone were willing to explore really, really what is truth. Not like my truth, your truth. Like, what is truth? What is objective truth? What is definitive truth? And at least be on the journey of the quest. That would be beautiful if people would just say, you know what, if my life depends on it, my worldview, my substance, how I'm living, my aim, I should at least go on a little quest to try to discover truth, because we're not just born knowing truth. Truth is a discovery. It's a journey. We test things and we begin to discover. So he asked this amazing question. The problem was his question was not sincere. In fact, the way he says this, it says, "What is truth?" He retorted. And when you look at the way this is written in its Greek context, it's kind of an angry slap. You ever hear somebody say, maybe walking out of the room, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" Right? Or somebody could say, "What do you know?" Right? They're not really saying, "What do you know?" I mean, really, what do you know? Can you help me here? What do you know? They're not asking that. What do you know? You know? Or they're not saying, "What am I supposed to do?" I mean, what can I do here? They're saying, "What am I supposed to do?" Right? And that's exactly what Pilate did. What is truth? So it wasn't a sincere quest. And he didn't wait for an answer. He walked out of the room. So he never really went on that journey. So was he unable to see it? Or was he not willing to see it? I don't know. You have friends and family and loved ones in your life. Are they even on the quest? Do they ask the question rhetorically or retorting? Is there a sincere quest of discovery? I hope so. I pray so. But Pilate was either unable to see it or unwilling to see it. And I'm afraid that's the case in somebody's life, either unwilling or not willing. All I know is from the passage, truth has a side, and Pilate was not on it. Truth has a side, and Pilate was not on the side of truth. And I think the aim here, guys, is for everything in our life, we should say, you know what? If truth has a side, I want to be on the side of truth. I'm not going to say it's my truth and truth is subject to me and truth is on my side, because it really isn't. But I want to be, according to Jesus, what he says, I want to be on the side of truth. And I trust you here this morning because you want to be on the side of truth. But truth has a side. And I think we need to, especially in days like these days, we need to question what we hear. We need to question narratives that are coming at you fast and furious. We need to question a lot of things and really say, is this on the side of truth or not? Is this opinion? Is it disposition? Is it passion? Or is it truth? And there's many things in our life, not just the current narrative of things, which is coming at an alarming pace, by the way. There are many things in our own life, maybe patterns or maybe the aims that we have, and just say, God, am I on the side of truth with this? What about with my arts? Am I on the side? What about my quest for knowledge? Am I on the side of truth? What about my goals? What about my agenda? What about my relationship? Am I on the side of truth? Or am I trying to get truth on my side and let my truth be the prevailing reality in my life? Or am I getting on the side of truth? And I would encourage you that truth has a side. And it's not just the one-time decision to know that God is the God of truth and to acknowledge him and to begin to follow him. That's the profound, glaring elephant in the room, that the God of creation loves you more than you'll ever know. And when we line up with him, we begin to walk in matters of truth and discovery ultimately. But even all the little things in our life, we can decide to either not be on the side of truth or be on the side of, we can be a believer and still have areas in our life that are just simply not on the side of truth. And so this makes me search my heart. It makes me look at my own life and assess and go, let me look at these areas of my life and make sure, are all of them, are they just ideas or plans or dispositions, or am I trying to line things up on the side of truth? I would encourage you guys to do the same. So many things. If you have fears in your life right now, is that fear on the side of truth? Well, I don't know. I didn't think about it that way. What does God say? And take everything that you have and say, God, am I trusting you? Am I looking to you? What do you say about these things? And we're going to explore this one more time next week. It's been a 3-part series on truth because truth warrants this kind of time. Understanding of truth, especially when truth is being dismantled on our watch like never before. So guys, I hope this blesses you. I want to close in prayer, ask God to seal some of these things in our heart. Mighty God, we love you. We thank you for your word. We thank you for the power of it. I just pray you would help us all understand deep dimensions of truth, because it is a quest, it is a journey, and there is revelation and knowledge in truth. And there's life in it. There's confidence in this. There's security in this. There's so much more, Lord. And as we roll out this series, God, I pray you just show us what matters most. And we would know the truth about truth. And that we'd share with friends and loved ones and family and neighbors who just really never thought about truth, or they have their own version of truth and they never really unpacked it. They never spent the time. They never camped out on the topic of truth to discover really what this is all about. I pray we would be seekers of truth, God. I pray we would choose to be on the side of truth. I just pray today, if there's any today that haven't acknowledged, Lord, your call on their life, that today would be the day and the time. If there's any sense in God saying it's time to get close to me and stop keeping your distance, it's time to get close to the lover of your soul, I pray now and today would be the time. And to do that, we just say to you in the privacy of our own heart, Jesus, I believe you. You came, you lived, you died on a cross for the sins of the world, including mine. You rose from the grave. Take mine away, God. We all have stuff, and I've got mine. Would you take my stuff away, my shortcomings, my faults, my sins, whatever this is, Lord. Take it away. Give me a fresh start, and show me how to walk with you and live with you. Show me how to learn from you. Show me how to discover truth in you. And we thank you for that, Lord, in Jesus' name. And if you prayed that prayer, I encourage you to let us know after the service. Our prayer team will be available over here after service. Or connect with us. If it's online, connect with us. We'd love to get you started in your first steps with Jesus and walking with him. And in the meantime, God bless you. Have an amazing week. Have an amazing Thanksgiving. Give thanks. We have a lot to be grateful for, everybody. So be grateful